Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Crunchy Girl podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about Christians in politics. And this topic is a little bit taboo in churches today, and people don't really want to discuss it. They don't want to offend anybody. But I would argue that it is our moral obligation to discuss our faith within the sphere of politics. Now, my first point in saying that is when Christians step away from politics, they hand over the reins to Satan to rule our nation. And we're seeing that time and time again today. We have divorce rates through the roof. We have abortion rates through the roof. We have people rioting in the streets, not respecting the laws, not respecting our military. And it's just insane. But it's all because we enabled this. We were silent for so long that they took hold, and now they're the ones in charge. And they're making the rules. And now it's almost too late to backtrack. But it is not too late to fight it. Now, there's a famous saying that says, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And that's exactly what I'm talking about, and we're watching it happen. We're so afraid that we may be canceled or what have you, that we're too afraid to make our beliefs heard. And that's just not right. That's not what we were called to do. It's not why God put us here. Now, we're supposed to be the hands and feet of Jesus, not the eyes of Jesus. We aren't made just to watch as everything falls apart. We are made to work. We are made to do our duty until he comes back. Now, it is also our right to exercise our freedom of speech and to not want to exercise our right of freedom of speech. These days, it's almost better not to say anything in some cases. But most cases, if we don't say anything, the other side will. And that is why we have so many younger people just going to the left, not because they believe that way, but it's because that's all they're hearing. They see people standing up and they want to be a part of something so badly that that's the side they choose. They aren't even seeing the other side to even make an informed decision. And that's why we see so much ignorance in the left. And that's exactly what is happening. Christians have always believed that God should be spoken of outside of the church, not just within the four walls. But for some reason, politics have been the exception. Why? Is it the most influential place God could be within the White House? I mean, that's where the decisions come from that create our nation. So why would we not want God to be a part of that? If we want a more godly-focused world, we have to have a godly-focused government. Are politics worldly? Right now? Absolutely. And what do we expect? We stayed silent for so long. How do we expect our voice to come out of something that we haven't put our voice into? This goes back to Christians not voting. It is our obligation to vote. When you don't vote, you are aiding and abetting Satan every single time. You are enabling him to take control. And we've seen it. We've lived it. There is a way to speak without falling into worldliness, especially in politics. It takes wisdom, it takes discernment, and it takes prayer, but it is possible. Now, my next point is that on the flip side of this, we do not want to be the ones pushing our beliefs 24/7 onto everybody, because that's not what God even called us to do. Now, to make him known, of course, that's what we are called to do. But to force it, never. Jesus didn't even force it. Right? Now, he told them the consequences, but he never forced it. He never said, you believe in me, or else. He did say, if you don't believe in me, this is what's going to happen, but he didn't threaten. He was just letting them know. And that's the same thing we ought to do, especially in the sphere of something as powerful as politics. We don't have to say, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. But we can say, oh, you can't kill your baby in the womb. You can't riot in the streets and burn down buildings free of consequence, right? If we want a more moral world, let's bring morals back. Let's bring consequences back. And we can't do that with people who don't want consequences in charge. Now, how can we be a light in a world when we are too afraid to start a spark? Now, that's one of the most admirable things about the left, probably the only admirable thing. They do rally, they do come together, they do make their voice heard, not for the right reasons and not the correct way, but they do. I mean, they get media coverage, the whole world knows what's happening. We ought to be that way. We ought to be the voice that the whole world knows. We ought to be the ones that are being louder than everyone else, not in a way that we're forceful or screaming, but in a way that there's so many of us and we're causing such a movement that it's too hard to ignore. Now, I know some people are going to be like, oh, you're infringing on our rights, separation of church and state. Well, if you know your history, you know that's absolutely not true. Separation of church and state was coined by Thomas Jefferson in a time where the state was telling them who and what and where and when they were allowed to worship. And Thomas Jefferson didn't want to empower the state. He wanted to preserve the church. And that is why this was created. And that is exactly what it did. But in modern history, it has been twisted. And again, it's because the Christians stepped back and said, okay, I don't think this is going to be too bad. Oh, I don't think it's going to be too bad that one teacher said you can't pray in their classroom. And now public schools, there's no God anymore. You're not allowed to pray in public schools anymore. And it's because one generation sat back and said, no, we want nothing to do with this. This is not really our job, not really our sphere to talk about. And it absolutely is. Absolutely is. And that is why we're seeing such a drastic change within the last 20 years, because a whole generation sat back and let it happen. And our generation has to be the ones that stands up and changes it. Now, another group of people are going to say, oh, we're going to jeopardize a career. We're going to jeopardize our relationships. I will lose my family. I will lose this. You might. You honestly might. I'm not going to lie to you. That is a very, very good possibility. But you know what? It's better to stand with God than sit and watch as the world falls apart. It truly is. We are not called to sit in the pew. Like I said, we're not the eyes of Jesus. We are the hands and feet of Jesus. We're to work, not watch. We are commanded to go into the world, actually, and make Jesus known. Not to be of the world, but to be in the world. We are not commanded to be silent in the world. We are commanded to go into the world and tell them. Tell them about Jesus. Isn't a good way to do that to start at the top? I mean, everyone listens to the president. Whether they agree with him or disagree with him, they hear what he has to say. Whether they obey it or not is different, but they hear it. Shouldn't we want godly things coming from that? I mean, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are doing a phenomenal job, but you know what? It could be better. And you know how it could be better? More Christians backing them up. More Christians saying, yes, this is exactly what we need. Showing young people that it's okay to stand up. However, do not do this if it's not your calling. I'm not saying you have to go become the president of the United States. I'm not saying you have to run for office. I'm just saying you should put your vote on the ballot. You should make your voice heard. You should let other people know I'm a Christian and I'm not going to stand for that. This is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. This is right. And this is what we're going to do about it. We should be the ones that say, here I am, Lord, send me. Thanks.